Common Coastal Birds of Dana Point, a virtual field trip. Hi, this is another JDW Talks. My targeted audience are birders, naturalists, conservationists, and Dana Point visitors. If you want to know more about me, I have a small pocket website. I'm showing you the link. And you could, of course, always stop a video to write down information. This was recorded in June of 2020. I'm dedicating this to all the birders who help with the Dana Point part of the San Juan Capistrano, California Christmas bird count these many years, and to the staff at Doheny State Beach and Salt Creek County Beach for making it easier for us to complete the counts. You ask, what is a Christmas bird count? Doesn't everybody know about that? It started in 1900 as a protest to what was called a side hunt, where people would go out and shoot everything they could find, and the person who shot the most animals won a prize. And Frank Chapman decided, don't shoot birds, count birds. And so 2018-2019 was the 119th count. You can see the number of people involved in it. There are close to 2,000 circles in the United States. A circle is a circle of about 15-mile diameter, and it's centered off of Ortega Highway for the San Juan count. Here is the Sea and Sage Audubon Society website on the count. Anybody can participate. We encourage everybody to help. Even beginning birders can help just by writing down results. They don't have to identify birds. And you can see that the 10th area is Dana Point and vicinity, and I am responsible for that. So what I want to do is it's such a nice day outside, is to go out and do a field trip, a virtual field trip, and let's all participate in the world's oldest profession, which of course is giving names to birds and other animals. The first task that Adam was given was to give names to all cattle and to the fowl of the air and to every beast of the field. There's something inherent in humans that wants to name things. Of course, it would have been a lot easier for Adam if God had given him the Sibley bird book. Another value, of course, of birding is for peace of mind and better health, and it's a major hobby. And I'm going to introduce that to you with this virtual field trip. This is the second field trip, virtual field trip, that I'm inviting you on. The first one is now on YouTube, and it was on the headlands of Dana Point, California. For that first field trip, I emphasized getting Merlin, which is an app to help you identify birds, and we also discussed eBird. And here I want to make sure that you're fully equipped with your virtual equipment list. Hat, sunglasses. I don't think you need water. There are bathrooms along the way with water. Sunscreen. I don't know whether a virtual person can get sunburned or not. We may have to walk across Salt Creek. We might have to get our shoes wet. That shouldn't bother you. Virtual binoculars. I want to talk about that. I told people to spend as much virtual dollars as they could. A good pair would run a couple $1,000s. We might have a spotting scope with us. I will bring my new super zoom camera, my Nikon, and I have a whole book shelf filled with books. A lot of them on gulls because they're difficult, and someone's going to have to carry that. I'm sure about that. Now, the last virtual field trip I went on, at the end, I looked behind me, and I noticed that most of these people on the field trip did not know how to use binoculars. They were getting headaches. They didn't know how to adjust the individual eyepieces. It was really sad. And instead of telling you about it, I'm showing you that there is a YouTube video on how to use binoculars. You could always tell a beginner because they're trying to find the bird I'm pointing out with the binoculars. They're looking this way, they're looking that way. It takes skill, it takes time to develop muscle memory for using binoculars. And eventually you should be able to look at a bird, bring the binoculars up in front of your eyes while you're still looking at that bird, and you should be right on that bird with your binoculars. So it's really important, and it will increase your value, your enjoyment of this hobby. Now, we are going to be identifying birds, but I'm not going to just blurt out the name of that bird. I'm going to wait 5 seconds, and then I'm going to tell you the name of the bird. In some cases, it's on 2 slides, and I'm going to have to see exactly when I'm going to tell you that 5-second rule. But misidentifying birds is not a sin. Pete Dunne said, quote, "Birding should be above all else fun. No one should ever go into the field worried about making a mistake or misidentifying a bird. There isn't a birder on the planet who hasn't misidentified a bird. The difference between a beginning birder and an experienced one is that beginning birders have misidentified very few birds. Experienced birders have misidentified thousands." When we go on this virtual field trip, there are 4 main groups of birds that we're going to encounter. And take a look at these. Make up your mind about what we're going to call these groups of birds, general names. We're going to look at 7 species of that bird on the left. And what does it represent? Well, I'll tell you that it is herons and egrets. The next one, which shows 10 species we're going to encounter, and there are much more than that, there are over 20 species, is, now I hear somebody saying seagulls. Well, it turns out if you looked at a field guide, there's no species that's called a seagull, and that term kind of hides a lot of diversity of this group. And this group is not only going to be gulls, but it's also going to be terns as well. The next one that we'll see all 3 species represented in Southern California. Actually, there's a 4th one that's rare, but the 3 common ones is a cormorant. And then the one on the right, it has a specific group, but it's part of a broad group of birds that we call shorebirds, and we will see 11 of them on our field trip. There is, and I'm going to use this, a nice government report on the world of shorebirds. It's a government report, so it's not copyrighted, and it discusses the major groups, and we will look at that as we go through this talk. This is a group that global warming may impact dramatically in terms of their breeding areas. We see them in the wintertime in Southern California. And this is a table that I'm going to show you parts of it during this field trip. Now, I'm going to emphasize birds' beaks and birds' feet. And you should be able to identify a bird from its feet alone, what type of bird it is, etc. Like on the bottom right, here we have a egret. It has obviously yellow legs, even though it's not shown that way. And it's important. I mean, I used to teach a large class of birders, beginning, a 1-unit class, 1 week. 100, 200 students would show up. And on the final exam, I decided I would bring out a bunch of feet of birds, just feet. And this one student got really upset, got up and said, "This is the stupidest thing I've ever seen." And I said, I'm going to have to fail you if you can't do this. What's your name? And you know what that student did? He stood up, he rolled up his pants, and he showed me his foot and said, "You tell me." So here are the 44 species of birds that we will encounter on our field trip. How did I choose these? Well, I had good pictures of a lot of them. Some of them are not so good, but it emphasizes something. Some of them are very rare. Some of them are only found in wintertime. But I felt that it was important to have all of these in this talk. And when I started putting this together this month in June, I just went through my photographic albums and picked out the ones I wanted. And I actually went out in the field during the pandemic and took some more photographs. So you can come back to this and see what the species are and do some studying before we actually go in the field. That's what a lot of birders do. I found this map, this land use map for the city of Dana Point, and it's not copyrighted, so I can use it to show you that we're going to go on a transect, A, B, C, D, E, and so on. And it's nice to at least show you we're going to go from north to south, basically north, and then we're going to go east. And the first transect is going to be Salt Creek Beach. There's a county beach here. There's a large parking area above it. The asterisk is probably about where Salt Creek exits into the ocean. And it's usually easily passable. Sometimes during storms, it is not. And here's a view looking north. You can just make out the where Salt Creek goes out into the ocean. You can see there's some birds there, and just a general view of a sandy Southern California beach. And you can see on the bottom left the date that these photographs were taken. And, I wanted to show you those birds out there. There's always distractions going on, like these bottlenose dolphins going by, very close to shore. But, we're not looking at those. We're looking a little bit farther out. And here we have birds that have long necks. They have feet that go backwards. They can dive up to 63 seconds. You notice in 2011 that the kelp beds extended all the way through this area. There was an unusual series of warm water. What is this bird? It's a western grebe. And this is a range map from Merlin, from the Cornell Laboratory of Ornithology. I will be using it. I don't think they will mind. And western grebes are found extensively in our area. They actually breed in our area. And they're the funny ones that in breeding you might have seen a pair running across water rapidly. We will see another grebe species in a second. But we're here to see what's on the beach. And sandpipers, in terms of the shorebirds, are the greatest majority of the shorebirds are sandpipers. Some of them have sandpiper in their name. And they vary greatly in size and shape. Generally, they're longer billed and longer legged than plovers. We'll talk about plovers. And they feed continuously. So let's see what's here. And although this is a bad video, and I went through a series of cameras that you'll see the quality will change, it does something very interesting. So let's see what it does. It's in all this kelp that's washed out on the beach. Look what that bird's doing, pushing. Watch what it does. Flipping, flip. Let's take a view of this bird. Remember, this is a shorebird. It is it's a black turnstone. Hey, I wonder why it's named turnstone. Now, usually these birds are in rocky areas, and so the northern part of this Salt Creek sandy area is rocky, and occasionally they will come out on the sand, but they're not common in the sense that you can always predict you're going to see these. And on a lot of our Christmas bird counts, we miss this species. They're on the jetties, but they're difficult to see. And you can see the problem with some of these shorebirds. It breeds all the way up on the northern part of Alaska. And with global warming, guess what might happen? We might lose the breeding grounds of a number of shorebird species. We see it during the wintertime. We don't recognize that its home, its summer home, is really far away. Here is another video. Again, I don't have great slides of this. These are small shorebirds. They flock together. They run on the sand, run toward the water, run back, run forward, run back. These are sanderlings. And again, here we have where they breed. I mean, we see them in great numbers on our beach sometimes, way north in Canada. Again, global warming may be driving them farther north. We have a number of plover species on our transect, and according to that government guide, these are compact birds with relatively short legs. Now, two that I'm going to show you actually don't have short legs. One of them does. They use their short, fairly thick bills to pick prey from the surface of the sand or mud. And they are known for the way they feed in a step-stop pattern. And I'm going to show you that with another species of plover in a second. And so we have this bird. It's actually at the exit of Salt Creek. A number of them are often found during the winter time, a dozen or more. You can see that it has a stout bill. This particular case it's long feet, and it's named for its summer plumage. Birds change their plumage. And you might say, well, that's a funny name. What's the name? It's a black-bellied plover. And you say it doesn't have a black-bellied. Well, yeah, it's a winter plumage. We don't see it during the summertime. And again, a species of shorebird that breeds way north in Canada and Alaska. So, people, teachers like myself, always review. We always want to review. So here we have on the north part of Salt Creek in November. How many species of birds do we see? We see 3. Looking at it from the right to the left, what do we have? The one on the right is a plover. That's a black-bellied plover. Black turnstone. Sanderling. Another black turnstone, another black turnstone. There is our plover in the front, a bunch of sanderlings, etc. So birders always try to identify every single bird they see because that repetition reinforces what the common birds are like. Now here's another bird that winters in this area, sometimes in large flocks. It has a double band across its throat. It's named for its call. If it does breed, and it does breed in the area, in fact, it can breed on gravel roofs. And if a predator comes close, or a human, it goes through a broken wing act to try and bring you away from its nest. Now, I don't think the name of the bird is here. Might be on this slide, showing that they're also at the outlet of Salt Creek. Let's assume, okay, let's ask, what is the name of this bird? It's a killdeer, 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 named for its call. And it can breed in our area. It's a pretty extensive breeding area. Global warming may not affect this as much as the others. That's a plover. Now, I'm going to show you the movement of this bird. This is actually taken from Strand Beach, not from Salt Creek. So let's see its stop-stop pattern. I think this one actually does a 3-step. Maybe even 4. Notice that stop-stop pattern. That's characteristic of plovers. Now, this outlet of Salt Creek, there is a puddle, a small wet area, fresh water, and it's amazing what you can sometimes see on this little area. This happens to be a American coot. There's a golf club, a golf course pretty much directly above us here, and coots come in. They actually migrate in, and during the wintertime there's quite a number, and sometimes they spill over into this water area. Someone once counted all the feathers on an American coot, and I don't know why they did that, but they got 13,913 contour feathers. Here's another bird that I've only seen once on this area. Let's get a close-up of it. It's named for somebody who was a mathematician and surveyor who sent a lot of specimens to the Smithsonian Institute when he worked in Mexico and the western part of the U.S. And until the 1980s, it was thought it was a color morph of its relative, and you've seen the relative already, which was the western grebe, but they changed their view and made this a valid species. And the reason why we can identify this is its bill is nicely bright orange, the western grebe is greenish, and its eye is not quite in that black crown. But as I say, it was only seen once here. It's unusual because it can't walk on land, and it needs a large amount of water to take off. So if this lost its water, it would be stranded. It is it's a Clark's grebe. Now I want to make a point about grebes, an interesting part of their nature. This is a bird that was on that golf course that's directly above us. They have a couple of small ponds. I think occasionally this bird will be in Doheny in the lagoon. It's possible. This is another grebe. This can sink like a submarine. It can just go straight down. It's called a witch bird. It's a pie-bill grebe. Now the reason I'm including this is to show you its foot. You see its foot there? Grebes have their feet all the way back in their body. It is very unusual to see a grebe on land. And look what that foot did. It would be like having your ankle turned around and put on your neck. And what the grebe can do is it can take its foot, rotate it, and put it under its wing. It's called shipping. So sometimes you'll see a grebe that looks uneven in the water because one of its legs is tucked under its wing, and it's thermoregulating. It's warming its foot. An interesting behavior. Here's another bird that might be found at the outlet of Salt Creek. This is a bird that a lot of you must be familiar with. It is it's a mallard, male and female. Now, along this Salt Creek beach, we may see a mixture of these sorts of birds. There are gulls here and there are terns here. If you notice, the terns have sharp pointed wings. They have very sharp bills. They are divers. They dive and plunge dive to get their food. There's actually two species of terns here. This is taken in October. The smaller ones in the center, you can see that there are, looks like about 4 of them are what are called elegant terns. Elegant terns. And the larger ones, whoops, I shouldn't have said elegant terns. I want you to figure that out. What are the large ones? The large ones are royal terns. And both of these during the breeding season, that black goes all the way over the top of their heads. You notice that even though it's November, they're still babies crying for food. So they put up quite a raucous sound on the beach. And so royal terns can be found up and down Salt Creek. They usually, or Salt Creek Beach, and they're usually pretty vocal. Kind of neat species. There are also gulls there. And remember, there are lots of different species of gull. I'm only going to show you just a limited number. Look at the difference between these two. How dark the wing covers are, the size and shape of the bill. The one on the left has a black and a red spot. The nature of the leg color. All of these play a role in the identification of gulls. And one of the problems also is that the large gulls tend to interbreed. So you get hybrids on the beach as well. It's said that you need about 2,000 images to be able to identify all the gull species exactly that we might have on our beaches. You notice also that the bird on the left appears to have 1 foot. You see that a lot about birds. And in fact, that's a question I'm also asked. Why does that bird have 1 foot? And of course, the answer is, if it lifted that foot, it would fall over. Actually, it has the other foot. It's tucked under its feathers for thermoregulation. These are 2 different species. These are California gull on the left, Western gull on the right, and we'll find out where they breed later when we're at Doheny State Beach. So here is an indication from this book that this is a 4-year bird. It takes 4 years to become an adult, and each stage has a different plumage, different coloration, etc. I led a children's field trip, and I asked, what's the difference between those brown birds and those white birds? And one of the kids said, oh, well, the brown bird is sunburnt. I thought that was clever. But I've also heard, even from people who have gone in nature walks, that Someone said that the brown birds are females and the white-looking ones are males. That's not true. That shouldn't have been told. Now, along Salt Creek Beach, whoops, I've shown you the name of the bird already. It's a snowy plover. There are these little plovers. They are threatened species. Unfortunately, humans like beaches too, and where they breed is on beaches, so that their numbers are lower than they should be, and there's some concern about them. Now, counting snowy plovers is not easy. It's not easy because they're in these kind of divots in the sand. How many can you count in this photograph? We usually have to count them once or twice or 3 times to get a count. Well, there are actually 6. There's one right underneath the R of snowy plover. And we can find out more about them because there are species of special concern. They are banded. There are banding programs to ensure we understand a lot about their life cycles. This particular one that was found on a Christmas bird count in December of 2018, turns out it was banded in 2011, 7 years earlier, in Monterey Bay. In Monterey Bay. Pretty bird. The park department put up signs warning people that this was a snowy plover roosting area and they're protected under state and federal law. There are people who insist on having their dogs on the beach, and it's a threat to these species. There are signs all up and down Salt Creek indicating that dogs are not allowed on the beach, and those people will be ticketed if they're caught doing that activity. All right, here is the bottom of the Salt Creek section. You're looking straight to the northern part. This area, which is a rocky point, has in this area a number of species that you can find, though they may be found throughout the sandy beach. There's this one. This breeds on the northern Great Plains in shortgrass prairie with wetlands nearby. Look at that bill. God, what a bill. It is it's a marble godwit. And obviously it uses that long bill to probe in the sand. And it's found in the center of the United States in shortgrass prairie wetlands. Now I'm throwing this in because I'm not really cheating. I'm on my way down from the Ritz-Carlton. There is that long incline down to the beach, and this bird was there looking down at the beach. It is now this may confuse you. This is actually a red-tailed hawk. It's a dark morph. There's a lot of variations in some birds. This part of the beach right below the Ritz-Carlton was a good place to find that smaller bird, although in recent years we have not picked it up on the Christmas bird count. This was taken in December of 2012. So we have 2 species here. They are, you should know by now, these are gulls. You look at the bill. One of them has a band on the bill. The other one does not. The other one looks like kind of a pigeon head in terms of it. And these 2 are the one on the right's a ring-billed gull. It walks like it's in a straitjacket. It's a 3-year bird. Takes 3 years to become an adult. The mew on the left is a lot less common, and sometimes people confuse these and assume that they're all ring-billed gulls, but we're hoping eventually to see these back at this point of the Salt Creek. And you can see where they breed quite separately. The Mew is breeding on tundra, and the ring-billed gull is in prairie, usually by wetlands areas. Okay, now let's go to the next segment of this beach. There's a parking lot above it that says it's Salt Creek parking area. We call it Strand Beach. So here we are. We're south of Salt Creek. The structure with the palm trees over there is the Ritz-Carlton Hotel. I'm on Nigel Shaw's property, looking at what we call Strand Beach. And I did not have a good slide of this species, except for this one. It is found in Doheny, sometimes on the jetty, sometimes on the bait barge, but it also forages in land situations. What type of bird is it? Is it a gull? Is it a cormorant? Is it a shorebird? It's one of the heron egrets, and this is our great egret. It can actually eat pretty much anything. It may be hunting for small mammals. It is the symbol of the National Audubon Society because at one time, when it breeds, it has these wonderful plume feathers that were worth its weight in gold on women's hats in around the 1900s. The Audubon Society was formed to protect this and other species. It's a great egret. We're going to start seeing some more of this group of birds. Oops, I shouldn't have done that. Tell you what the bird's name was. So we're looking down south toward what's called the headlands. There's a boardwalk starting from about where I am that goes all the way down there. There are bathrooms along this area, and there are bathrooms on Salt Creek as well. So here we are looking out on the beach. It is July of 2017, and all of a sudden there was this huge flock of birds. You can see they're going in what looks like a circle around this boat. If you look carefully, you'll see some of them with rapid wing beats, and then they soar over the water. They shear the waves. In terms of that, I'm sorry I didn't keep this film going longer, because what's going to happen soon is that the ship is approaching what I thought initially was kelp, but those are also these birds that are sitting on the water. So just a huge concentration of this species, which breeds on islands off of Mexico and is irregularly seen, comes up to our area. I'll show you a single individual in a second. I am going to show you December 2018 that one of them, very unusual, was in the Dana Point Harbor around the bait barge. We're going to see a lot of different species here, but it's obvious that there's a small bird that is sticking its head under the water. I'm surprised that the sea lions don't come up and just take a munch of it. And I'm going to show you a good photograph, still photograph, but I was taking video of this. Here comes a cormorant on the right. On the bait barge there are gulls, and there's also a heron there, night heron, with his back to us. And here comes a sea lion. That's one of our western gulls, an immature. Has its head underwater. It picks up small food. There's a different cormorant. There goes a sea lion. I just kept waiting for this bird to be gobbled up. And here's a view of it. It has a funny nose. In fact, It's called a tube nose because of the structure of its nose. It's way out there. It's not a gull. It's not part of the gulls. It is it's a black vented shearwater. And you can see where it breeds off the islands of Mexico. Oh, look what's coming over the headlands. It's getting a lift from wind hitting the cliffs. And here he is with his buddy, two immature birds. What am I looking at? I'm looking at a brown pelican and a Heermann's gull, and you often see these together, and I'll explain why. Brown pelicans were once on the endangered species list. They have made a comeback. They were there because of eggshell thinning and food chain problems with insecticides. Heermann's gull is one of my favorite gulls. Here's what the adult looks like. I revised the life history, the biography of Adolphus Heermann, which the gull is named after. Oops, shouldn't have mentioned the name. Oh, we already told you that. And I have two YouTube videos, one on Heermann's life. I revised his birth and death information, and another one on his collecting in California. They breed in islands in the Gulf of California, and when they migrate during the wintertime, they migrate north. And they lose that white head. They become a grayish bird. The brown ones are immatures. I'm going to show you some feeding sequences of this gull, which somehow or other has learned to feed on sand crabs. Gulls usually just pick food up from surfaces, but they have developed this technique. Heermann got the original specimen during the gold rush days off of San Diego. And in those days, they had to ship specimens down the coast, across by land, the Isthmus of Panama, and then to Philadelphia, where the Philadelphia Academy was the center of science in those days. And it was there in Philadelphia that Casson, a very famous ornithologist, named the species after Heermann, Adolphus Louis Heermann. Now, Heermann made an interesting observation on this gull, and he says that in the Gulf of California, I observed a small black gull, probably the immature, which is kind of brownish, following brown pelicans, incessantly on its flight. And as the latter plunged into the sea after fish, the gull would immediately alight by its side. The pelican, emerging from the water to discharge the fluid collected in the gula sac, would drop its bill. When the fish partially protruded from between its mandibles, the gull would seize upon one and drag it out as his share of the booty. Heermann's gulls are thieves. Although this feat is of hourly occurrence, I have never seen the pelican offer the least resistance or show any anger or impatience at the intrusion or impudence of his little neighbor, who, like a tax gatherer, follows him through life and evil inevitable. I'm going to show you that. I'm going to show you not a very great video. You're going to look at the right-hand side of the picture. There was a food supply very close to shore, as you will see. Two pelicans are going to dive down. They're plunge divers. Interesting that the older the pelican is, the higher it dives from. And as soon as it hits the water, it will have a large number of immature human gulls trying to get food out of it. Here we go. Boom, boom. And if you look at the one on the right, it looks like there may be a gull that's trying to get the fish out of it. Wish I had a better camera at that time. Okay, here is another bird. You know what the type of bird is, right? You know why it's on one foot. So let me show you the feeding of this bird. It's picking stuff off the surface, but it also is willing to stick its bill quite far down. This is winter plumage. When it flies, it has white in the wings, so it's very obvious when it flies. So we have multiple birds feeding on the same species, but different techniques, different levels that they reach in terms of the sand. Now, I mentioned that a lot of the birds we are looking at are winter plumage birds. This one is the same species, but it is now changed to a breeding plumage. And this bird that we just saw, and this one here, which breeds in grasslands and prairies near fresh water, is it's a willet. And there's its distribution and where it breeds. That kind of salmon orangey color. Here's another bird that we might see on Strand Beach. Long legs with yellow, long bill. It uses those legs sometimes. If it's in water, it will shake its foot, especially in fresh water, either attracting maybe prey or scaring it away and feed on them. It is it's a snowy egret. You see a lot of them on the bait barge trying to get free food. Now, as we get to rocky areas, although this can be found anywhere on the beach, we have this bird, which has this long down-curved bill. Notice that each species is specializing in different feeding abilities. It is it's a whimbrel. And it can do something I think that the others generally don't do. It can even probe in basically dry sand. And again, it's a species that's found in breeding very, very far north and may be susceptible to global warming. And let's look at how it feeds. It will go in wet sand as well. All these long-billed shorebirds must have specialized tactile senses at the tip of the bill to tell a pebble from a sand crab. Touch, smell, pressure, something. So they're specialized there. And it's going pretty deep, and it's getting food way down there. It will also feed on the wet sand as well. It is a whimbrel. All right, we're going now on an intertidal, rocky intertidal, underneath the headlands. I used to be able to walk that. My sense of balance is not as great as it used to be, and the trail is over rocky, uneven rocky area. It's not that safe anymore. You start from this end by the Marine Institute, and it's been disappointing, I must admit, in Christmas bird counts, that our rocky intertidal isn't as diverse for birds as, let's say, Laguna Beach's intertidal. But there are some birds here that we get on Christmas counts. But before I do that, you can also see out and look at San Juan rocks if you have good optics. And I want to make a point about San Juan rocks. This particular rock that you can see from the Marine Institute overlook of the ocean was in two parts. 2013, you can see a bunch of sea lions. Here's 2013. You can see seals, not sea lions, that are out on the rocky area. And that pyramid-like rock, well, it's no longer there. It was knocked over with winter storms. The ocean is relentless. In this area, you might see in April flocks of Pacific loons that are migrating up the coast. And I emphasized this on the first field trip. Some years they're great numbers, other years they're migrating farther out. And the Christmas bird count bird that I was looking for, which winters in this area, is this little guy. Let's see if the birders can recognize what it is. It is it's a rock wren. And anywhere in the headlands by the cliffs, it's possible to get this bird. Some years we don't get it on Christmas bird count. Other years we do. We can see a number of birds on these rocks here on occasion. And one of them is this bird. It's the most widespread breeding sandpiper in North America. The female defends the territory. The male incubates the eggs. And the female may have up to 4 different males and nests at one time. This is the breeding plumage where you see spots all over it. This is obviously a shorebird. What are most shorebirds? What are the dots? What's the name of this bird? It's a spotted sandpiper. Very large range. Now I'm going to show you why it's called the teeter-totter bird. This is from that golf course lake that often has spotted sandpipers. This is winter plumage. And I think you can see why it's called a teeter-totter bird. There's actually a wandering tattler shorebird that I decided not to include that also shows that same pattern. We might find around the Marine Institute this bird here. It's an insect eater. It's a black phoebe. So let's concentrate on the harbor area. The harbor area has a jetty that protects the boat moorings. It has an island that we're going to look at because it has some birds that we want to look at. And it's home for the jetties and the rocky areas. It's home for an oystercatcher species. They're chunky shorebirds of the coastline. They have strong laterally flattened red-orange bills, which are used to pry open the shells of clams and oysters. Not only pry, there's actually 2 ways of opening a shell. You pound the heck out of it, those are the hammerers, or you jab at it and cut the adductor muscle. And if you're an oyster catcher, you either have one or the other approach. And so here it is. This is actually taken on the rocks of that island in the harbor. The name of this oyster catcher it's a black oyster catcher. And they're very vocal when they fly. You might hear them. A relatively large bird. The jetty is a great place to look for pelicans, but we would probably need to set up a spotting scope. And if you often see a lot of birders there looking at the end of the jetty with spotting scopes, they may be looking at rarities. Dana Point is known for attracting rarities, the harbor. And you're looking at the top of a bird that has a funny looking bill. It's not what the heck is that? What is that bird? Seen in July of 2019. It's called a Nazca booby, and boobies are found well south to us. And so when something like this shows up, a blue-footed booby, a brown booby, etc., that's become more and more common, birders still will come out and look for it, especially if it sticks around. It's not just a one-day wonder. The jetty is also home to this group. Remember, this group are cormorants. And this particular one is it's a double-crested, because during the breeding season, the top of the head has two crests. Double-crested cormorants are the cormorant you usually see inland. The other two species we'll look at are rarely found away from the coast. There is another possible inland cormorant called a neotropic that last year or the year before was the first time it was seen in Orange County. It's a Mexican species. But the one on the right is an immature bird. Compare that to the bird that's in front, and the bird on the back is an adult with that kind of orange coloration. This one does not have that. That bird is a Brandt's cormorant. And the third species, which looks like its bill is a pencil-like that's been glued to the head, this is a smaller species, is a pelagic. And the cormorants have different feeding styles. The pelagic hunts small fish among rocks. The double-crested cormorant hunts schools of fish. And the Brandt's cormorant tends to be one that looks for fish down on the bottom of the water. Now we're here on the island because we're looking for a particular group of birds. I think this is one of the signs. Look at all that whitewash. Now you would think that if you saw something like that, you would look up. Well, this person obviously doesn't have much observational skills. The other possibility, of course, is that this is actually a bird watcher. So he could show up at when bird watchers get together and everyone will say, wow, look at that dedicated bird watcher. He should have looked up. He would have seen 3 nests up there, probably great blue heron nests. Whoops, told you what that bird would be. So what is this? This is a great blue heron. This will eat anything, and you have to be careful. If you find a sick one of these, it will attempt to stab you in the eye and can actually kill you. It has a white cap on this one. It's an older bird. The juveniles do not show that white on the top. And I'll show you a prey item of this bird later. Here's some more whitewash. This is on the west side of the island. I was on June 2020 because I was missing a good picture of this and I went to try and locate it. And here's this bird that's causing that. 1 foot type of bird. It's not a gull. It's not a cormorant. Name is it's called a night heron. It's active dawn, dusk. It spends most of the day in a roost situation. You can see its head is black crowned. We'll see what the juvenile looks like in a second. Most people who are hunting these herons go on the east side of the island around the Nordhavn Yacht Company site. They have a koi pond there. And you sometimes will see birds on the rocks around there. This happens to be also a black-crowned night heron, but it happens to be a juvenile. They have a koi pond, and the really large fish, I've seen once where an osprey got one of them, but the smaller fish might provide food for these birds. There's a large tree and a kind of a traffic island right by that yacht company. And this bird in 2018 was the first one recorded on Christmas bird counts. There was an influx of these birds into the county. During the summer, their population seemed to disappear. Not quite clear what's happening. What is the name of this bird? It's a yellow-crowned night heron. Got two species of night heron. And there's the yellow-crowned night heron. And I'll show you the difference between it and a black-crowned night heron. So a yellow-crowned night heron has a much more massive bill. It has a longer leg. In fact, that little knob you see is its ankle. And it goes, the black-crowned night heron has really kind of short legs compared to this. The black-crowned has a bill that the lower mandible is mostly yellow. The yellow-crowned night heron has very small white spots, and the fringes of some of those feathers you see are white. And I haven't seen this as a field mark, but the base color of those primaries have that grayish look, while the black-crowned night heron is pretty much a brown background. And I couldn't resist putting this in. This is by the koi pond. There was a hopeful snowy egret. Also there is this strange bird that you may encounter. What is it? It is an Egyptian goose. Where did it come from? It's an African bird. Well, my knowledge was that it came from Lion Country Safari, so I did a Google search, and I found that there's an article in 2017 from the University High School in Irvine, California, who indicate that a drive-through safari park called the Lion Country Safari was opened from 1970 to 1984 in Laguna Hills, just across the 405 freeway from the Irvine Spectrum Center. 3 pairs of Egyptian geese were brought to the park, but fled soon after arriving, and it's likely that the ones in our area, in the Irvine area, are the descendants of the 3 mates, and they're all throughout Orange County in urban parks. And they say while there's no exact explanation for how the local birds in Irvine got there, or if they are indeed from the original shipment to the Lion Country Safari Park, the legacy of these birds remain intact. And before we leave the island, we'll see a fish-eating hawk. It is a osprey. It is adapted to feeding on fish. In fact, if you see it with a fish in its claws, it rotates the fish so it's head first. And it has modified feet to grab onto a fish. All right, we're at the last stretch here. This is going to be Doheny State Beach. On the left side, there's a small little creek that's often not flowing very fast, and you can go from public parking, it's paid parking from the county, right across to the beach. And that little wet area has provided some interesting birds. There is this bird, and some of these birds have nicknames, like this is called the up the creek bird, because when you see it, it's flying away from you up a creek. Type of bird? You should know it by now. Name of the bird? It's a green heron. Now I'm going to show you the great blue heron here in the next slide. It's called Big Cranky. And I heard a commotion a number of years ago. I didn't quite have my camera out. And what I saw was the great blue heron with a ground squirrel in its bill. And it was drowning that animal. And the next thing I knew when it kind of disappeared from sight was there was no ground squirrel in sight. And I just looked up online, and there are videos of the great blue heron swallowing alive a ground squirrel. So great blue herons will feed on anything. They will sometimes be in fields and they're feeding on gophers. Crazy. Doheny was known for the gull population during the winter time. And I think on one count we estimated about 10,000 gulls. Since the 2010s, the numbers have gone down dramatically. There's been an attempt to scare away gulls from the nearby sanitary landfill. But most of these are California gulls and western gulls. Where do they come from? Well, in 1997 to 1998, I went out and read gull bands at Doheny State Beach. I spent 170 days doing that, got very good at it with a spotting scope, and I found 300 California gulls with individual band numbers and 100 western gulls and some other species as well. And these are appreciations for each of my sightings, and there were more as well. And I estimated during this time, 97, 98, that there were over 20,000 western gulls using the Doheny and over 500,000 California gulls, which seem to be moving through the area. So where are California gulls from? Well, it depends, of course, on who's banding. And I retrieved bands from these areas here all the way up to northern Canada. So California gulls are migrating. They're migratory species. They breed in inland lakes usually, though there's a population in San Francisco Bay. And you can see that orangey going all the way up, that's the breeding area, and that's the reason why I have one band there. Western gulls, on the other hand, the bands come from coastal areas. The number one place for western gulls breeding is off of San Francisco, called the Farallon Islands. And so they're coastal birds. But a lot of gulls are actually inland species. Now, one of the things that I went out recently, because I had poor pictures of, was to get this species, and I was just lucky that there was one on the beach at Doheny. This is another one of these large, what is it? What type of cormorant? No. Heron? No. What is it? It's a Caspian tern. Now, the exit of San Juan Creek goes through Doheny State Beach. Sometimes that sand berm is intact and water builds up here. I don't think I moved this picture. Do I? No. And sometimes the berm is breached, and we get all sorts of different species here. One of the ones is that we could see in Christmas counts are avocets and stilts, type of shorebird. The American avocet is hit or miss. The black-necked stilt is easily recognized by its long red or pink legs. It's a crazy-looking bird. And I shouldn't have told you what it was. This is a black-necked stilt. Now, this picture actually was taken up by the Salt Creek outlet, but I didn't have very good pictures of this. But it's pretty much regular on Christmas bird counts to see this bird foraging right around PCH Bridge underneath. Pretty looking bird. And I have only a couple more species. Here's another bird that we might see. Now, obviously, the lagoon has emptied out. So here's another picture of the bird. This is winter plumage during the summertime. It has a black cap for its head. very delicate. It is a Bonaparte's gull. Bonaparte was an ornithologist. He named birds. He happens to be the nephew of Napoleon Bonaparte, and spent some time, Charles Lucien Bonaparte, in the United States. The name of the gull is named for him, as honor of him. You won't believe where this bird breeds. It's usually an offshore bird in wintertime. It breeds in the edge of northern forests where coniferous trees are near lakes or bogs, and it nests in trees. So the idea that gulls are all, quote, seagulls masks a lot of variation here in terms of it. And you can see this is another migratory bird. It comes all the way from Canada down to our area. I'm using this bird as well. This was I found in the lagoon in San Juan Creek Lagoon in Doheny in October 2003. You can see there's a snowy plover in the snowy egret in the front. The crazy looking bird. It is a reddish egret. I don't think it's been recorded at Doheny since that time, although in Orange County it's no longer the rarity it once was, and it's been a predictable resident in Upper Newport Bay and things like Bolsa Chica. And when it feeds, it runs around flapping its wings. This is a juvenile, but it's a sight to behold. There sometimes is this bird that's in the San Juan Creek Lagoon area. It is a peregrine falcon. Wonderful looking bird, very, very powerful in flight. And finally, I'm going to tell you about the last bird. What type of bird is it? Well, on January 5th of 1996, I was looking for another species of gull that had been reported from Doheny, which we haven't really looked at here, a lesser blackback gull, and came across this species, which turned out to be the first one ever recorded in California. It is a ivory gull. And ivory gulls during the wintertime spend the wintertime in ice floes in the Bering Sea. Since that time, there was another sighting of ivory gull in California, but only 2 of them. And so you never know. If you're a bird watcher, you need to know the common birds well. It would be good if you had a camera with you to document photographs, because initially when I reported this, no one believed it. They thought I had seen a pigeon. Only 30 people got a chance to see this bird before it disappeared. It was only there for, hours. So you may be in a position to find something that's really unusual, to be able to document it, and then be able to call someone like C&Sage Audubon to let them know. So I hope you enjoyed our little virtual field trip, made you more aware of your surroundings and what to look for. And this has been another of my talks on YouTube, my JDW Talks channel. I hope you subscribe to it. Counting this one, I have 4 natural history related talks. Most of the talks will be about genealogy. I have now 6 census talks, including U.S. and New York City, and talks on the upcoming 1950 census becoming public April 2022, which will be the definitive talks on finding people on that census. In addition, I have interest in Ellis Island Immigration Station, and eventually I will have 5 talks there as well. So if you have enjoyed this talk, spread the word, and you can subscribe to my channel. I'll have under 20 PowerPoint presentations before I stop.